that the founding fathers were mostly Christians. Don't shake your head no. Actually, they were. With the real exception of Jefferson, the possible exception of Ben Franklin, but Adams, Madison, and all the other signers, with the exception of 15, so 15 out of the 55 signers of the Constitution, never told anybody what their religion was. As a matter of fact, we're not sure of the religion of George Washington because he never spoke about it. All those stories you know about Washington chopping down cherry trees and throwing coins across the Great Potomac were all made up by a minister 15 years after his death. Why? Because Washington was a great man. The only way he can be a great man is God blessed him. And the only way God would bless him if Washington were a Christian. Therefore, Washington was a good Christian. So we have Washington kneeling at Valley Forge. Never happened. One of the things that I discovered was one of the most irreligious people that signed the Constitution was Hamilton. Yet Hamilton argued for a national religion. Patrick Henry actually probably lit one of the first fuses for the Revolution in 1770, actually 1760 something, wrong year, that when he represented farmers from a Baptist association in Western Virginia, not West Virginia because it didn't exist yet, Western Virginia, against the Anglican Church who wanted to increase taxes. Patrick Henry was an extremely religious man, and he got more religious as he got older. And he and Hamilton and a couple of other people tried to get the United States to become a religious nation, have a national church, and it never happened. Just never happened. If you read, I'm not telling you to read it because most of you will fall asleep, but if you read the Federalist Papers, there is nothing in the Federalist Papers written by three of the most religious people in the United States, in that founders, which is really something like 250 something people. And all those founders, Hamilton, Madison, and John Jay, were extremely religious. Not anywhere in there do you see anything about this being a religious nation. God is mentioned, but God is mentioned and religion is mentioned in terms of the Greek gods, not in terms of the gods of the Jews, of the Christians, and of the Muslims. Nowhere in those papers. Matter of fact, the only document of all the founding documents that has any weight at all is the United States Constitution. And Article 6, Clause 3 of the Constitution says, we shall have no religious test to hold any public office. It says that. So if you want to get upset and angry that presidential candidates are saying that I am a born-again Christian, well, they're using their Christianity to win an elected position that all of a sudden became important to the general public. And of course, the First Amendment to the Constitution, which says, this, and there is no such thing in the Constitution as separation of church and state. It doesn't say that. The argument, though, in the constitutional law is usually that the First Amendment is keeping government out of religion. And the answer to that is it does. Yes, you're right. But you can't stop there, because if government can't be involved in religion, then the opposite is also true, that religion should not be involved in government. And that is something that's very, very difficult for proponents to catch and to understand. Go ahead.
So would marriage be an example?
Marriage is a very good example. The idea of same-sex marriage is based on religious belief. more than anything else. So is the abortion issue. They won't admit it, but it is. So yeah, the marriage issue is a religious issue. Why are we talking about this? Because it's morally wrong. And I said, whose morals? Morality. I'm going to sidebar this a little bit, then I'm going to open it up to general questions from you guys. Morality. Ethics is the study of morals. Morals is the study of right and wrong. They're not made by the holy books. As a matter of fact, if you look at, well, you got to figure out which 10 commandments we're looking at here. There are either 6, 10, 12, 15, or 637. And now how many, you know, even in Exodus, there are 2 different versions of the 10 commandments. So I don't know. And then you have Deuteronomy, and then you have the Christ's Sermon on the Mount, and then you have the Jewish laws that all come out of the Bible. So, you know, try to figure it out. But nothing in the Constitution is based on biblical law. It's not. I don't see anywhere in the Constitution where I have to honor my parents. I do it because our society says it's the right thing to do. So morals are based on societal rules. They are based on temporal rules, on time, and on education. Slavery was justified by biblical law. The abolishment of slavery was justified by biblical law. I don't get it. Human is human. Okay? One of the things that we also hear is this war on Christianity. And I get into this discussion all the time, and I want to finish with this so that you have an idea what's going on. When people say, there's a war on Christianity, and you turn around and look at me and say, where? The war on Christianity is really a self-perpetuated myth. We are a Christian nation under the definition of the basic religion of the American citizenry. 75 to 80% of Americans are of one of the many Christian faiths. Over 200 denominations are recognized by the IRS for church status. And that doesn't include the temples, the Jewish or Buddhist or Hindu. That doesn't include Islam. That doesn't include a lot of the other religions. So we have a real problem here. Which version of Christianity are we looking at? But as a people, yeah, the majority of us are Christian. But here's the difference between affiliation and your morality. That you may be affiliated with this church, but the question is, do you ever go? Washington rarely went to church, only went to church because Martha told him to. And even then, there's a great story, and I don't know how true it is, that he got kicked out of the church one day because he was sleeping. He would drop his wife off at church and then do General Washington stuff. So just because you're affiliated with a church or a temple or a synagogue or a mosque does not mean that that is the religion that you actually practice. That's why there are so many people who register non-denomination or non-religious. That's that 12 to 16% of Americans. Very small number actually say we're atheists or agnostics. But that's 16% of Americans. That's a pretty big number. So just because you're affiliated with the church doesn't really mean stuff. Because there are less atheists in jail per populace than there are Christians. Atheists have a lower divorce rate per populace than Christians do. There are, and I mean, just look at who's battling who. The Ku Klux Klan was based upon the Protestant belief that Catholics were not good and blacks were not good. It was biblical. The Aryan Nations is biblical. So who is actually having a war against whom? Yeah, we do have people in our organizations under the atheist umbrella that are anti-Christian. Unless you ask them, and then they just say they're anti-myth or anti-stupidity. As far as I'm concerned, I'll take the place of Ben Franklin. Your religion is yours, and as long as it don't hurt me, I don't care. Thank you for your time.
Hello, my friends. I'm Professor Hans von Puppet. I just read some very interesting stuff about a new book, David Grossman's A Christian Nation, an examination of Christian nation theories. This is some book. A Christian Nation examines court cases, quotes, documents, and proofs through the 21st century provided by Christian nation theorists about the religion of our great nation. A Christian Nation is due for release in paperback and ebook on November 1st, 2011. But you can pre-order your copy today. Just go to books.inkandvoice.com to read a sample chapter and place your order.